Hey YouTube, I got a new sewing machine and I've just gotten this out of the box, so this is not going to be the how-to video. This is just going to be out of the box and my first impressions, but I promise you the how-to videos will be rapidly forthcoming, so just like it and subscribe it and you'll get notified when I start learning how to operate it. This one is a little bit higher end model. It's computerized. It listed for $300, I think, on Amazon. I ordered it. Has a lot of bells and whistles. So let's just go through and look at what all came in the box first of all. Naturally, you get your instruction manual and your quick start guide, but we're not going to get started just yet. We're just going to look at things. I did go ahead and put some of it together. It has a separate foot pedal. This is the foot pedal and the electric cord. They plug in on the end here. Nice light. So I've already got that turned on. Now, the first thing when I opened it up and started looking for all the feet that came with it, I was a little disappointed, but your feet are inside your little storage compartment right here. They're in this little white bag and they're tucked down in here. So don't panic if you don't see those. Just look inside your storage compartment here. Alright, and that's what makes your free arm. What caught my eye about this, first of all, is something really random. The feed dog system on this, it has a 7-point feed dog system that is supposed to be longer than the regular ones. I haven't measured it against any other sewing machines yet, but they do look, the box for sure looks longer. The feed dogs are these little teethed metal parts down here, and that's what pulls your fabric through your sewing machine. That's what helps guide it. So an accurate feed dog system is extremely important. It helps you get it under the needle where you want it and be able to guide it and manipulate it. So that's what I was incredibly interested in. And yes, there are 7 pieces here. There's 2 long ones on the side. There's 3 short ones in the middle. And then there's 2 tiny ones in front. So I'm anxious to put some fabric under here and see how it flows through there. I'm really excited about it. And that's what made me pull the trigger on this one. So first, let's just look at what all came in the machine, and then we'll look at some of the workings of the machine. You get the little bag, the cover for it. This little chart, I had to snap it on. This little chart is going to tell you all the numbers of your stitches. Because this one is computerized, you're not going to be turning a dial that's got, or to pick a number. You're just going to go to that number. So this lets you know what stitches you're using. And there are some really interesting stitches here. Some that I don't guess I've seen. There are some decorative stitches that are pretty cool. So we're going to have to try out each and every one of those over the next few days. Now, it does have a twin needle with it, which means it is capable of twin needle operation, and I'm going to do a video on twin needle sewing as well. When you use twin needles, what it does is you get 2 stitches or 2 rows of stitching right together. You can use that like at the bottom of a t-shirt. If you look at your t-shirts or your knit shirts and you see that double needle stitching, that's how that was made. Or it was serged. Let's see what all we have here. I dumped out the little bag. They give you some extra needles to start with. Looks like a pretty nice assortment there. You have a nice buttonhole foot. I can tell because this is one of the feet where you're going to be able to slide this down and up rather, and put your button in there. That means this has an automatic sized buttonholer. A lot of them will say auto buttonhole, and it's auto, but you have to turn it every time, you know, or stop it and move it to the next stage, and you have to be the one to size it. So that, I mean, it's not impossible, but it just doesn't lend to having uniform, you know, each buttonhole may look great, but they don't all look alike. So with this one, you put the button that you're going to be using in here, and this will guide the machine stop, start, side to side to fit that button. So this is amazing. It also has, I think, 5 different shapes of buttonholes. Yep. There's the square one, there's a square top one with a little arch on the bottom, your keyhole one, and then a couple of other decorative ones. So options there on buttonholes. Let's see what else. We get some extra 15 bobbins, size 15. Now, this is the ever-present seam ripper, and if you've ever watched any of my videos, you know that these things scare me more than the machine does. So as soon as you get it open, take this thing out and put it up somewhere that nobody else can find it accidentally, because these are so sharp and they're slippery. I've hurt myself more with these things than I have with the machine. So take it out, put it up. When you need it, you'll know where it is. Hopefully you're not having to do too much seam ripping. You also use these when you're cutting open your buttonholes, so you will need it, but it just doesn't need to be where anybody can find it. Okay, let's see what we have here. This orange handled thing is an eyelet tool. So if you need to make the little round eyelets and you need to poke out the center, this is sharp on the end. You'll just put it down and tap on it or poke it through there, and it will make you a nice eyelet hole. This is a thread wrap, this mesh thing, and you use it if you have like a large cone spool. It helps keep the thread from just flying off of it. So you would put your thread inside this before you thread it, and that just helps the thread feed off evenly. I mean, you don't use it all the time, but when you need one, it's nice to have that. Let's see what else we have here. Your lint brush, so you can clean out your bobbin compartment. We have a couple of 2 different size screwdrivers for different adjustments and changing your feet, I'm sure. The extra thread spool holder. Oops, this is what you'll have to have if you're going to use the twin needle function, because in order to use twin needles you have to have 2 spools of thread going through there. So this will attach, probably, we'll figure that out, but it'll attach somewhere over here, and or maybe onto this thing. We'll find out. But this is what you'll use if you want to do the twin needle stitching. We have 3 different, these are to hold your spool on here, so you've got 3 different sizes, a small, medium, and a large, depends on what size spool of thread you're using, because you just want to cover up the end of it, but you don't want to be way out, and if you have a big one, you don't want to be too small. So 3 is nice. I've got a lot of machines that had 2 different sizes, but 3 is very nice. Thank you, brother. Oh, we have the lovely, this is your walking foot, this big attachment right here. And I have a video on another machine using the walking foot, but I'll make one for this one too. I love these things, but then I'm a quilter. When you have layers of fabric going through here, this helps feed the top fabric. Your feed dogs grab the bottom fabric and pull it through. And if you only have 2 layers, then, and they're cotton layers, they feed pretty evenly. But if you have more layers than that, or if you're working with slippery fabrics, this just helps keep, because it has a little plastic feed dogs itself here. So you're feeding from the top and the bottom, and everything just kind of goes through there at the same speed. I know before I ever started using one of these, there were a lot of times I would sew a long piece or 2 pieces of long fabric together, and I get to the end and there's, you know, a chunk of one that didn't get pulled through at the same pace. So this is exceptional. I love using these things, but they do add to the noise level. So we have an interesting shaped, this is another little screwdriver that we'll use for different things here. So there's a screwdriver. Now let's look at these feet here. This one is your in foot, and it is called a monogramming foot. It has a really large space in here for you to work, for the needle to work with. You're going to use on this machine. This machine's not going to monogram. You're not going to be able to make the big circular monograms, but all the decorative stitches that require the needle to skip around a whole lot, this will give you room to do that. This foot is your eye foot, and it's called a zipper foot, and you do use it for zippers, but there's other applications. This foot just lets you, because the needle goes into this little divot right here. It's really close to the edge, so you can be sewing right up close to the edge of something, and that's mainly for zippers, but there are other times. Let's see what next. This is a quilting foot, so this one interested me. It's got a 1/4 inch guide on one side and I think a 3/8 guide on the other, so it just helps you judge your seams. This is M. This is your button foot. So, and let's talk about that in just a second. Let me get through these other two. We have R and we have G left. Now G, if you can see it, there's a little bar running down in there. That's your overcast foot. This is the one that's going to help you sew over the edge of fabric if you're trying to finish your edge so it won't ravel. And then this one, R, is going to be your blind stitch hemmer foot. And I also have another video that shows how to use the blind stitch hem function, and we'll look at that too. This is so you can hem your dresses or your slacks or whatever real quickly, and you get a blind, it's called a blind hem because you can hardly see it on the outside. All the stitching is on the underside. So now back to the button foot. I had just done a button video on another machine, and you know, I used to not worry with getting out a machine when I just need to sew on a button, but it really does such a nice job. You can really, you know, tell the difference. So I like doing the buttons on there. Now, with the other machine that I did, it did not have one of the capabilities this does. You could not lower your feed dogs. When you sew on a button, you're going to need the feed dogs to not touch whatever you're sewing because you don't want it pulled under there. When you're sewing on a button, you're going from side to side, in and out of the two holes. And if it's going to start moving that button backward, it's going to be kind of hard to get, you know, 10 or 12 stitches to hold that button on. Now with the other machine, I used a darning plate cover, and that was a little flat piece that snapped in here. It covered up the feed dogs and kept it from pulling the button under there. This one, you're not going to have to do that because you can just lower your feed dogs. On the back, there's a little lever right here, and you just slide it over. That disengages your feed dogs. They sunk way down, so they're not going to pull the fabric. And then go this way. Now, if you already have the machine and you've been trying to use it and it's not pulling your fabric through, check this, because sometimes this gets moved over and it's not going to move your fabric. It's just going to sit there and sew with it until you move it. You can also use this feature if you're making a quilt and you kind of want to do some decorative stitches along the top of the quilt. You can disengage these and then you can move your fabric in circles or whatever you want to do with it. It's not as easy as it sounds because you do have to practice. so that your stitches will be consistent. But this disengages and engages your feed dog. So that's kind of an upper end function that's not on every single machine. So, turn back around here to the front. This is going to be your tension. How tense do you want the upper thread? It has a speed control right here, whether you want to go really fast or really slow or just in the middle. Now, this machine also, you can unplug your foot controller like this, and you can press the on button and it's just going to start sewing by itself. That's when your speed control is important, because you don't have a foot pedal to guide it. Just sews by itself, faster, slower. It's really quiet, isn't it? That's what I love about it too. It does have fully adjustable width and length. A lot of machines, they tell you that it's adjustable, but really they have like 4 different settings, and that's all you can do. So this one, you can adjust your stitch length. That's from, you know, end to end to end, all the way from 0.2 centimeters to 5. 5 would be a basting stitch. That's going to be a long stitch that maybe you plan on taking out later on, or could be a nice top stitch. I don't usually use a 5 for that, but so it'll go from 0.2 to 5.0. Now the width, which you only use for like a zigzag-ish type stitch or some of your decorative stitches, if you're in a straight stitch, you're not going to use this one because you're just going in a straight line. It's at 0. But if you want to change it, you can go all the way up to a 7 width, and that is really wide. If you're trying to sew 2 pieces of fabric together, really the most that I use this for is if I want to sew some elastic into a puffed sleeve or whatever, and I go from side to side over the elastic, so that's going to be nice. Now, right here, it tells you which of your stitches you are using, and you just turn the dial, and it sets everything for you perfectly. It also tells you which foot you need to be using for that particular stitch. So that is really cool. It has reverse right here. It has needle up, needle down. So, and you can set it to stay down. Like when I'm quilting, I'm turning a lot of corners. I set it in the needle down position. That way when I stop at the corner, the needle stays in the fabric, and then I can just spin it around and keep going. I don't have to reach over and sink the needle and then all that. So it just cuts out a step. So that's really nice. We have a drop-in bobbin. Those are easy to thread. It's got a lot of guides here in the foot. One other thing that I like about this is it does have an expanded throat space up here. This is important if you quilt, which I love to do, because you're going to be rolling up a quilt trying to get, you know, part of it or a large part of it through here sometimes. So this extra space is really, really important to me. Now, this changes your needle position. Oops, because I have it down, so let me raise it up. From side to side, you just press that and it goes left to right to whichever side. Oh, it does have the automatic needle threader. All you have to do is push this down and then you're going to pull your thread through there. And I did figure out one thing really quick. If the needle is not in the uppermost position, like if it's down here, when you press this, it's just not going to swing around. It's not broken. You just need to press your needle up button right there and get it into the right space, and then it goes right through that needle hole every time. So I'm excited about that. has 50 built-in stitches right here. And I'm going to do another video about, and I'm going to compare, I'm going to throw this one in the pile. I'm going to do a new comparison video of a whole lot of other sewing machines. One thing I've noticed that's quite interesting is the difference between number of stitches and stitch applications. This is a new phrase. A stitch application is just something you can do with a stitch. And you can take a straight stitch. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. So what they're doing on some of the lower end machines, because people look at that and say, oh, I don't want one that only has 7 stitches. Well, instead of saying 7 stitches, they're saying, oh, it has 35 stitch applications. Because you can use the straight stitch to sew a seam, you can use it to do a hem, you can use it, you know, they're coming up with applications for each stitch, because when they're advertising it, it sounds better. So watch for the difference between number of stitches and stitch applications, okay? Well, I'm going to get a little more familiar with this machine, and then I will be uploading videos about how to thread it and how to do how to use some of the different things. But I'm so excited, and the main thing is the sound. It is so super quiet. I don't know about y'all, but I like to sew in the evenings and people are trying to watch TV. Maybe I'm trying to watch TV at the same time or listen to the radio or whatever. So I really just don't like a loud machine. I like for it to be quiet. And this one is, so I'm super excited. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and like the video. And I'll be uploading all the tutorials just as quick as I can get them done. Thank y'all for watching. Bye.